has spent 5 trillion on Museveni in 5 years. President Museveni has budgeted 479 billion for his residence, State House, next financial year. State House is one of the benefits extended to the President under the President, Vice President, Prime Minister's Emolument and Benefits Act. Approved budget for State House this financial year is 508 billion, which was increased to 967 billion through supplementary requests. State House has learned tricks. They request for half of what they will spend in a year and keep increasing it through supplementary requests. The reason I have singled out State House is because it is even not complying with the Public Finance Management Act. If you look at their policy statement, policy statements are supposed under Section 12 of PFM 8 contain vehicle utilization report, but State House is embarrassed to provide this information. They are no longer providing, yet it's a legal requirement. They have this time even removed the list of staff, the one we were sharing last year where they have Mzushiani, Catherine Kusasia. Now they have plucked it off, yet the law says it must be there. I propose that we decline approval of State House budget until they have complied with the law. This table shows you how much money we have spent. And I am saying we've spent more on State House than on PDM in 5 years. The NRM government has budgeted another $1 trillion for parish development model. The Auditor General in the December report said 3.2 trillion had so far been spent on PDM by close of financial year. When you add this, it brings total to 4.2 trillion spent on PDM. The program PDM is supposed to get 39% of Uganda's households from subsistence economy to money economy. Uganda has 10.6 million households. Each household is home to about 4 people. The PDM is therefore supposed to benefit about 14.8 million people. We therefore need to note that in the last 5 years, we have spent 4.3 trillion on State House compared to 4.2 trillion on PDM. And then State House will go around the country that they are inspecting PDM and finding out why they are not getting rich. 4.3 on State House, 4.2 on PDM, 14 million people against the president and family. That's why he's swimming in money. Recently, you saw him splashing billions to TikTokers, just a matter of seconds. 100 million to each of the 400 NRM MPs that attended Chankwanzi Muchaka drills. I don't know. Maybe someone should tell us where this 100 million per NRM MPs Muchaka graduates came from. And in Chankwanzi, the emperor said, I don't want to hear corruption in parliament. And the beneficiary of 100 million each laughed and urinated. Financing the budget, I have finished expenditure now. Finally, I'm looking at where the money will come from. The table here summarizes. First, we will be raising money through tax and other revenues. Petroleum, budget support, local revenue, domestic borrowing, and external borrowing. And I am looking now at the source of money and their implications before you say aye. Taxing citizens out of existence. The NRM government wants to finance 52% of the budget through local revenue, mainly taxation. The rest of the money, 32 trillion, will be borrowed. Last financial year, Uganda Revenue Authority collected about 29 trillion. This table is just giving you the aggregate figures of what we will be raising through which tax. We have just finished passing taxes. Payee alone, and we have just about 1 million Ugandans who are paying payee, 7 trillion. So I'll jump the page 21 and 22, and then go to page 23. The first table ending on top of page 23 is showing you the type of tax and the amount of money. And then the table below is showing you how much money URA has been collecting. I'll go to taxation. Taxation killing business. As usual, the NRM has revised its revenue collection targets randomly. The target is to collect 44.5 trillion in revenue, with taxes contributing about 41 trillion. The NRM government tends to arrive at figures through guesswork. They can announce a figure of 44.5 trillion local revenue just because they hear that in Kenya tax to GDP ratio is 18, while ours still at 14. This government lacks a comprehensive tax policy. We saw that when we are handling taxation. When I am Matia Kasaija, and I want you to listen to Matia Kasaija, those of you are angry with me. He warned against this guesswork, and I don't know why it is continuing. This is what he said. In order to achieve our revenue potential, we'll move away from ad hoc annual tax policy changes. These piecemeal adjustments with little alignment to an overreaching strategy have created a high degree of unpredictability and uncertainty in our tax policy direction. That's what Kasaija said. But he continues coming here every year. We are opposed to some of these have been overtaken. I wish we had presented before the taxation bills were passed. So I will, page 24, the World Bank Human Capital Development and Growth Review spoke about the impact of taxation on employment. Over 90% of farms in Uganda are macro and informal, consisting mostly of self-employed households enterprises. While 28% of adults own or co-own a new business, Uganda also has some of the highest business discontinuation rates in the world. Factors contributing to this include high tax rates, corruption, and low human capital among both owners and their workers. Both World Bank and National Planning Authority report that of every 4 businesses started in Uganda, 3 will die before their 5th anniversary because of high cost of credit and because of taxation. I am urging you to stop approving new tax proposals because they have the potential to render our people joblessness. In this budget, and I'm trying to summarize now, borrowing 36 trillion to finance the budget. Here is the money that we will be borrowing in that table. From the above, you can see 42% of the budget will be financed by borrowing. I want to go to the last paragraph on page 24. Bank of Uganda puts total public debt at 124 trillion in its December 2025 report on the state of economy. In its December public debt statistical report, finance puts it at 126. I may not have to read each and everything, but I want to talk note, at least of the head notes. Domestic borrowing is killing private sector. This one I'll read, it's important. To finance the 84.2 trillion budget, this aging NRM government plans to raid the domestic financial market to borrow 25.9 trillion. Of the 25.9 trillion from domestic market and 11.97 trillion will be used to directly finance the budget, while 13 is redemption. Let me make this very clear. The principal payment of money locally borrowed that will be due for payment next financial year is 13.9. This is what finance, Honorable Musasi, for that matter, has given all sorts of clan names, such as security redemption, debt rollover, refinancing. They don't want you to know that they have failed to repay the money lenders. That's why interest payment is skyrocketing, as we will see later. Honorable Speaker and members, government-heavy borrowing from domestic market has serious ramifications to our economic growth as it keeps interest rates high and crowds out the private sector. That relies by about 97% on commercial banks for credit. Bank of Uganda, for example, in its December 2025 State of the Economy quarterly report, reveals that in the first quarter of this financial year, July, August, September, credit supply in the country stood at 5.8 trillion, while demand was at 8.2 trillion. During this period, the NRM government sought to borrow 6.18 trillion. Mind you, the available money private sector is 5, but they want to borrow 6. Private businesses and NRM government fought over this limited credit supply. This scavenging on the limited private sector credit is killing the private sector, because only 66.9 applications for credit that banks received, only 66 were approved, as banks prioritized government securities according to Bank of Uganda. The central bank noted cautious lending behavior towards the private sector. Mind you, of the 15.8 million working population according to National Planning Authority, 13.3 million are employed by the private sector. Therefore, limited supply of credit affects jobs of 13.3 million people directly. The International Monetary Fund, in its latest assessment on Uganda, notes that government debt now accounts for over 30% of commercial bank assets, up from 21% of 2019, and still rising. So the table below here, I don't have to read each and everything, is showing you sectors and how they have been accessing credit. If you go on page 27, and I am running quickly to finish, you can see the sectors, and there, page 27, 28, 29. Firewood. I invite you colleagues to look at the table. I don't have to take a lot of time. And the reason I'm doing so, the minister will come here waving a budget, agro-industrialization, mineral development. But this is where the money is going. Manufacturing. And then you can look at the table on page 16, other items in the budget. And I invite you, because they were given huge documents here. At the end of those documents, there is aggregated items on which we are spending money. But they have learned a very good language here. Agro-industrialization, and you think actually money is going there. So I'll jump 16, 17, 18, and come to page 19. Because they didn't want to touch even a comma. Said we are in trouble. The man said, don't touch our budget. So I have helped you to consolidate. It's entirely up to you to pass or not. This is a status and analysis of areas. All these hospitals are in debt. They can't pay electricity. They can't pay pension. They can't pay salary. They can't pay water. And this information was brought to the committee to consolidate. Maybe the Honorable Siagi and his deputy, you should ask them after, tell you to point to a particular page where they consolidated anything. And the recommendations are there. Human resource in public health facilities. This one, you will forgive me, is being repeated. The road infrastructure on page 43. I don't have to repeat them. I already captured them. I now want to go, so these ones are repeated. For page 46, I already referred to it. You go to page 48. I have just about 2 pages to finish. The Honorable Msasiz was here. He said this is Artemis, mineral development. In the budget framework paper, the Honorable Msasiz proposed a budget of 1.6 trillion for extractive industry development, 1.6 trillion in the budget framework paper. Then when he left, he removed it. What has been brought today for you to pass is 435 billion. Not even what he brought in the budget framework paper. And he says the NRM manifesto as guided by the president. Please clap. Colleagues, you can clap. I am concluding now, page 48. The UBOS, in their latest report on what they call multidimensional poverty, because they are not only measuring income, they are looking at people's capacity to pay for hospital if they are fallen sick, the number of years they are in school, access to toilet facilities. And this is how they have summarized Uganda, and that's my summary. In Karamoja, people are suffering from multidimensional poverty. They are 91%. In Karamoja, people suffering from multi-dimensional poverty. The vice chair comes from there, he says, crap. West Nile, people are suffering from multi-dimensional poverty, who can't go to school, have no access to toilet facilities. It is 73%. I am waiting to see if there is anyone from West Nile who is going to crap. This is information from UBOS. Multidimensional poverty. That's where we are after 5 years. So the rest you can read about yourself. Say, multidimensional poverty, you are at 67%. These are people. Busoga is at 59, as usual. 60% of Busoga are suffering from multidimensional poverty. No access to improved toilet facilities, no access to energy for cooking, no access. There are 11 parameters that they measure, not just the income. So as you pass the budget, finally, I want to draw your attention to one table, the last table, which is Annex 1. So this table has the details as they came from your committees, which you asked us to consolidate, but they were never consolidated. There is a table I have skipped. I'll try.